Lucas was on a routine mission, far away from Earth, on a planet that seemed more like a forgotten corner of the galaxy. His task was simple: explore, collect data, and return. He had done this a dozen times before. Yet this time, something felt different. The planet's surface was a dull brown, the sky overcast with thick clouds, and the air was cooler than he expected. His boots made soft crunching sounds on the gravel as he walked through the deserted landscape. As he made his way to a rocky outcrop to check his scanner, a strange sound broke through the silence, a faint cry like someone in distress. Lucas paused, his heart skipping a beat. The sound came from the valley below. He knew better than to wander off the path, but curiosity won out. He adjusted his pack, checking his pulse rifle, and made his way down the rocky slope. The moment he reached the bottom, Lucas saw her, a figure lying against a pile of rubble. She was alien, unmistakably so. Her pale blue skin shimmered slightly in the dull light, and her small, elf-like ears flicked with every noise in the air. She was unconscious, her breath shallow and uneven. Her strange beauty was unlike anything Lucas had ever seen. Soft features, delicate but strong, like something out of a dream. Kneeling down, Lucas hesitated for a moment. Was she a threat, or just another survivor from some lost race? He had been trained for many things, but dealing with alien life forms wasn't exactly his area of expertise. Slowly, he reached out to check her pulse. It was faint, but steady. "Hey," Lucas whispered, shaking her gently. "Can you hear me?" Her eyelids fluttered before she opened them, revealing eyes that were a vibrant shade of violet. She blinked at him in confusion, disoriented. She tried to sit up but winced, her body clearly weakened. Lucas quickly placed his hand on her shoulder to steady her. "You're safe now," he assured her, his voice calm, though his mind was racing. "I'm here to help." The alien woman stared at him for a long moment, as if trying to understand his words. Then, in a voice that was surprisingly soft and melodic, she spoke. "Tell me what to do, human. I want to be yours." Lucas froze. Her words were clear, yet they didn't make any sense. What did she mean? Was she delirious? He looked around, expecting someone to jump out of the shadows. But there was no one. Just the two of them, alone in this alien world. "I don't understand," Lucas said, frowning. "I'm just here to help. You're not in any danger." But the woman only smiled, her eyes softening. There was a strange intensity in her gaze, a mix of curiosity and something deeper. As if in that moment, the universe had drawn them together for some purpose he couldn't yet comprehend. She reached up to touch his hand, her fingers warm against his cold skin. "Tell me," she repeated softly, "what do you want me to do?" The weight of her words settled on Lucas like a heavy blanket. He had no idea what was going on, but one thing was certain: his life was about to change forever. Lucas stood frozen, staring at the alien woman as she clung to his hand, her eyes filled with a mix of hope and something deeper, something almost pleading. Her words echoed in his mind. "Tell me what to do, human. I want to be yours." He wasn't sure what to make of it. Was it a misunderstanding? Maybe some form of alien etiquette? But no, the way she looked at him, the way she touched him, it felt too real. He carefully pulled his hand away, not wanting to seem rude, but trying to process the strange encounter. "You're not well. You've been hurt." He looked at her closely again. The skin on her arms was bruised, and her breathing was still shallow, but her eyes never left his. She blinked slowly and tilted her head slightly, as though trying to read him. "I don't need your help, human," she said softly. "I want to be with you. I want to follow you. Tell me what to do." Lucas swallowed, feeling the weight of her words press against him. This was unlike anything he had ever experienced. He had been on missions to countless planets, encountered various alien species, but never had anyone, let alone an alien, spoken to him in this way. There was something about her that was undeniably magnetic, and it made his heart race, despite his better judgment. I don't understand, Lucas said, trying to find his footing in this strange situation. What do you mean by that? You don't even know me. She smiled gently, her features softening. I know what I feel. And right now, I feel that I should be with you. That I belong with you. Lucas felt a wave of confusion wash over him. The whole thing felt so surreal. Was this some kind of trap? Or was she telling the truth? He had no idea. Still, he couldn't help but feel drawn to her, like an invisible force was pushing him to make sense of what was happening. You don't have to say anything, she continued, her voice quieter now. Just guide me. Show me how to be yours. Lucas felt a strange flutter in his chest. He had heard of alien species with unique customs, but this was different. His mind was racing, trying to figure out what he should do. He wasn't prepared for this kind of interaction. He had no idea how to respond to someone, especially an alien, offering themselves in such an unexpected way. I'm not. He started, but stopped himself. Was he really going to say he wasn't interested? He couldn't lie to himself. He felt something for her, something that went beyond curiosity. It was deeper. He wasn't sure if it was attraction, but there was something undeniably real about the bond they were forming. Why me? Lucas asked, finding his voice again. Why are you choosing me? She closed her eyes for a moment, as though thinking deeply. When she opened them again, her gaze was intense. I've traveled through countless worlds. I've learned much. But with you, human, I feel like I'm home. Lucas could see the sincerity in her eyes. It wasn't the fevered delusion of someone unwell. This was something far more profound. But the idea of an alien, one so different from him, wanting to be with him in this way, was almost too much to process. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was no ordinary meeting. Something had brought them together. And now, as much as he wanted to pull away, he knew there was no going back. Tell me, then, Lucas said, his voice trembling slightly. What do you need from me? Her smile returned, a hint of mischief in her eyes. Everything. I need you to lead me, to guide me. Show me what it means to belong. Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that everything about this situation was spiraling out of his control. The alien woman, Lyra, as she had finally revealed her name, looked at him with such intensity that it made him uneasy. He was used to analyzing situations, figuring out what to do next. But this felt like an enigma he had no tools for. Lyra was still seated on the rocky ground, her violet eyes focused on him. She hadn't let go of his hand since he had helped her up. You still don't understand, do you? She asked softly, almost as if she was reading his thoughts. Lucas blinked. I don't. What exactly do you mean by wanting to be mine? His voice cracked slightly, betraying the confusion and curiosity that filled him. Lyra gave a small smile. I don't belong to anyone. Not yet. But I want to. I want to give myself to you. It wasn't a threat or an order. It was a plea, a request that made Lucas feel both uncomfortable and strangely honored. Her words were so foreign, yet there was something about her voice that made him want to listen. Why me? Lucas asked, trying to find some rational explanation. He could sense she wasn't just confused or sick. There was something more. I'm just a soldier, not someone special. She shook her head gently. It's not about who you are. It's about what I feel. My people, we are not like you. We choose one, and we submit ourselves to them. It's part of who we are. But you, human, you are different. You have strength. You have something that draws me to you. I don't want to be part of the system anymore. I want to be with you. Lucas frowned. Submit. What do you mean by that? Lyra's gaze softened. It's difficult to explain. My people, the Elysians, we live by a set of customs. We are taught to be devoted to one individual, one who leads, guides, and protects us. This person becomes our world. We give them everything, our loyalty, our trust, our very being. It's a bond that cannot be broken. Her words were startling, and Lucas struggled to understand. In his world, devotion wasn't forced. It was a choice, a partnership. The thought of someone giving up their autonomy for another was unsettling, even if it was part of her culture. Still, there was a depth in her eyes, a kind of raw honesty that made him question everything he thought he knew about relationships. "And you want that?" Lucas asked. "You want to be mine, just like that?" Lyra nodded, her expression calm, but filled with an intensity that Lucas couldn't ignore. "Yes, I feel it. I've been searching for someone like you, someone to lead me, someone who understands what it means to be strong but kind, to guide with wisdom, not power, someone who can accept me as I am." There was something about the way she spoke, something sincere, something desperate, that moved Lucas. He had never thought of himself as a leader, let alone the kind of person who could inspire such loyalty in someone. But here she was, looking to him, as if he was her only answer. "Why me?" he repeated, still trying to understand. "Why not someone from your own kind? Why a human?" Lyra's eyes darkened slightly. "We Elysians are old. We've seen many worlds, many species, but something about humans, something about you, it is different. You are not bound by the rules that hold us. You're free, and I've never felt that freedom before. I want to feel it. I want to experience it with you." Lucas took a deep breath. This was insane. He was a human, and she was an alien, a creature from a distant world, with a culture that seemed so alien to him. Yet, despite all the reasons to walk away, he found himself drawn to her words, to the raw emotion in her eyes. "I don't know if I can give you what you're asking for," he said, his voice quiet. "But I'll try to understand. Just give me time." Days passed since Lucas had first met Lyra, and each one felt like a step deeper into uncharted territory. They spent most of their time together, Lucas teaching her about human ways and Lyra showing him glimpses of her alien world, her thoughts, and her culture. Despite the clear differences between them, an undeniable bond was forming. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. There was something more, something deeper that neither of them could ignore. Lyra was a quick learner. She absorbed every detail Lucas shared with her, and in return, she shared her own knowledge. She spoke of her people, the Elysians, a race of beings who had evolved over millennia. Their customs were built on devotion and submission, as she had explained, but Lucas couldn't quite shake the feeling that Lyra was different from the rest of her kind. There was something more in her eyes, something rebellious, something that craved freedom. They sat together one evening, watching the stars above them as a light breeze swept through the rocky terrain. It was quiet, peaceful, and for the first time in days, Lucas felt at ease. "Tell me more about your people," Lucas asked, breaking the silence. He had come to trust Lyra's words, but there was still so much he didn't understand. Lyra turned her violet eyes toward him. Her gaze was intense, but soft, as though she were letting him into a secret part of herself. "We were once like you, free. But over time, we evolved, and our society became structured. Our devotion to one individual was no longer a choice. It became a law. But I never wanted that. Not for myself." Lucas listened closely, his interest piqued. "So, why did you leave your people? Did you choose to come here?" Lyra's lips parted, and she seemed to hesitate before answering. "I did not leave them willingly, but I could not remain in a society that demanded complete submission. I was different. My heart, it yearned for something else. And when I found you, I realized that perhaps you could give me the freedom I sought. You're different from the Elysians. You don't live by rules that control you." Her words echoed in Lucas's mind. "You don't live by rules that control you." Was she referring to the way humans had the power to make their own choices? The freedom they often took for granted? He wasn't sure. But there was one thing he did know. Lyra was unlike anyone he had ever met, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't deny the growing attraction he felt for her. I don't understand your people's ways, Lucas said, his voice soft. But I do know that what you're asking from me, it's a lot. Lyra lowered her gaze, as if she had been waiting for him to say that. I don't expect you to understand everything. I only ask for your guidance, your trust, your heart. She lifted her eyes to meet his once more. But more than that, I want to be free. I want to choose my own path, and I want to walk that path with you. You are the only one who has ever made me feel like I could. The sincerity in her voice was undeniable. Lucas found himself lost in her words, in the truth that seemed to flow so easily from her. He didn't have all the answers, and he certainly didn't know how he could lead her the way she wanted. But he was starting to realize that their connection was something he couldn't ignore. Lyra wasn't just some alien from another world. She was someone he could understand, someone who needed him as much as he had come to need her. For the first time, Lucas felt a sense of responsibility, not just for her survival, but for her happiness, for the path they could walk together. He nodded slowly, a small, uncertain smile forming on his lips. We'll figure this out, he said quietly. Together. Lucas couldn't stop thinking about Lyra and the strange bond that was growing between them. What she had said to him kept echoing in his mind. I want to be with you. Tell me what to do. He didn't fully understand it, but he was beginning to feel a pull towards her that went beyond simple curiosity. It wasn't just that she was an alien, or that she was beautiful in a way he had never seen before. It was something deeper, something real. And every moment they spent together only made him question everything he had ever known. Lyra seemed to sense his inner turmoil. Every day she watched him closely, as if she were studying his every move. At first, Lucas thought it was just her alien nature. But now he realized she was looking for something. An answer, perhaps. And every time he tried to distance himself, she would reach out, quietly urging him to decide. One evening, as they sat together in the same spot they had often shared, Lyra turned to Lucas with a serious expression on her face. Tell me, human, she said, her voice soft but filled with purpose. What do you want from me? The question caught him off guard. He had been the one asking the questions all this time, trying to understand her and her strange ways. Now, the tables had turned. Lyra wasn't waiting for him to guide her anymore. She was waiting for him to make a choice. Lucas took a deep breath, trying to collect his thoughts. He hadn't expected to be put on the spot like this. Everything about their connection had happened so fast, and he was still struggling to understand what it meant. But in that moment, he realized something. He couldn't ignore the way he felt. Lyra wasn't just some alien. She was someone who had trusted him with her deepest feelings, someone who had chosen him. And now it was his turn to choose her back. I don't know what you're asking for, Lyra, Lucas said, his voice steady. But what I do know is that I don't want to lose you. I don't understand everything about your people or your customs, but I feel something for you, something real. And I don't want to just push you away. Lyra's eyes softened, and she reached out to touch his hand. You don't have to understand everything. You just have to trust me. Trust what we have together. Lucas looked at her, his mind racing. Was he ready for this? Could he really be the one to guide her, to help her break free from her people's customs and live a life of her own choosing? Could he handle the weight of that responsibility? He had never been the type of person to be the center of someone's world. The idea of leading another being, especially someone like Lyra, was terrifying. But then something inside him shifted. He looked at her again, her eyes filled with such raw emotion, and he realized that this wasn't just about him anymore. It was about them, about what they could be together. There was no going back. He had to make a choice. I'll help you, Lyra, Lucas said, his voice filled with resolve. I don't know what this will look like, but I'm not going to let you go. If you want to be with me, then I'll do whatever it takes to make that happen. Lyra smiled softly, relief washing over her face. She had waited for this moment, and now it had finally come. She had chosen him, and he had chosen her. "Thank you," she whispered, her hand still resting on his. "We'll figure it out together. I promise." For the first time, Lucas felt like he was no longer just a man on a mission. He was something more. A leader, a protector, and perhaps, in time, someone who could offer Lyra the freedom she had always longed for. And for the first time in a long while, he felt sure that this was the right path. The days that followed felt like a whirlwind for Lucas. He had made a choice, a decision that would change everything. No longer was he just a human on a routine mission. Now he was entwined in the life of Lyra, the alien woman who had chosen him, who wanted to be with him. And as much as he tried to adjust to this new reality, there were still so many unknowns. He had never been responsible for anyone else, let alone someone as complex and different as Lyra. One evening, as they sat together under the stars, Lyra suddenly turned to him with an expression of quiet determination. Her violet eyes locked onto his, as if she were searching for something in his soul. "Lucas," she said softly, her voice serious, "I need to know something. If I am to truly be yours, to follow you as you lead me, I must first understand your strength. Show me what it means to be human." Lucas frowned, unsure of what she meant. "What do you mean? I'm not a warrior or anything. I'm just." She raised a finger to silence him. "I know you're not a warrior in the traditional sense," she said, "but your species is capable of something extraordinary. You are capable of choice, of making decisions that can change everything. This is your strength. This is what I want to see." Her words weighed heavily on him. He had never thought of his ability to make decisions as a form of strength. To him, it was just part of being human, making choices, facing consequences, and learning from mistakes. But to Lyra, it was something far deeper. It was what set him apart from her kind, from the Elysians who had been bound by tradition for so long. "Okay," Lucas said, nodding slowly. "I'll show you. But you have to trust me. I'm still figuring this out myself." Lyra gave him a small, knowing smile. "I trust you, Lucas. But it's not enough for you to simply decide. You must lead me through your actions, through your choices. Show me that you are the one who can guide me. Show me that you are not afraid of what this connection means." Lucas took a deep breath. He had never felt so much pressure in his life. He wasn't sure if he could lead Lyra the way she wanted. He didn't have any grand plans or ideas, but he did know one thing. He wasn't going to turn away from her. Not now. Not after everything they had shared. "I'll try," he said, his voice steady. "But it won't be easy. I can't promise I have all the answers, but I'll figure it out, one step at a time." Lyra nodded, her eyes glimmering with something between hope and challenge. "That's all I ask, Lucas, one step at a time." The next few days were filled with moments of testing, of trying to understand each other better. Lucas took Lyra to the edge of the planet's largest forest, a place he had explored when he first arrived. The towering trees stretched high above them, their dark trunks and thick foliage providing an almost mystical feeling. Lucas turned to Lyra. "What do you see here?" he asked. She looked around, taking in the alien landscape. "I see life. I see the potential for growth, for change. But I also see the dangers, things that could harm us, things that could break us apart." Lucas nodded. "That's what life is. It's about growth, but also about survival. We face challenges every day. The trick is not to run from them, but to face them head on, to make choices that will move us forward." Lyra's gaze softened as she looked at him. "I understand. And this is what I need to learn. How to move forward, how to choose." Lucas reached out, taking her hand gently. "Together, we will. You won't have to face it alone." In that moment, Lyra finally understood. The test wasn't about whether Lucas could lead her. It was about trust. Trust that together, they could overcome anything. It was a lesson she hadn't learned in her own world, but with Lucas by her side, she was ready to start. The days grew longer as Lyra and Lucas spent more time together, exploring the planet and learning from one another. With each passing moment, Lucas found himself more drawn to her, her strength, her vulnerability, and her strange beauty. But as their bond deepened, so did his internal conflict. He had never expected to become someone's guide, someone's leader. He had always seen himself as just a soldier, following orders, carrying out missions. But now, with Lyra beside him, he was faced with a new responsibility, one that weighed heavily on his heart. One evening, as they sat by the edge of a lake, the moonlight reflecting off the still water, Lyra turned to him, her eyes filled with quiet determination. "Lucas," she said, her voice soft but firm, "you've shown me your strength, your ability to lead. But there's something else I need from you, something I haven't told you yet." Lucas looked at her, confusion clouding his thoughts. "What is it, Lyra?" She hesitated for a moment, as if searching for the right words. "I want to be free, truly free. My people, my civilization. They've bound me with their traditions, their rules. But now I see a new way, a way of choice, a way of freedom. But that freedom isn't just about me. It's about both of us." Lucas felt a pang of uncertainty in his chest. He had been slowly getting used to the idea of leading her, guiding her through this strange new world they were creating together. But freedom. He wasn't sure if he was ready for that kind of responsibility. "Lyra, I don't know if I'm the person you need," he said, his voice heavy with doubt. "I can barely understand your world. And freedom, that's a big word. I don't know if I can give you that." Lyra reached out, placing her hand gently on his. "You don't have to give me freedom, Lucas. I already have it. What I need is someone who will walk beside me, someone who won't control me, but will allow me to make my own choices, someone who will trust me the way I trust you." Her words cut through the tension in Lucas's mind. He had never thought of it like that. He wasn't supposed to control her, to tell her what to do. He wasn't supposed to be her master. They were supposed to walk side by side, making choices together. "I want to be with you, Lucas, but I need to know that you will trust me too. Trust that I can make my own decisions, just like you can." Lucas stared at her, feeling the weight of her request settle on his shoulders. He had been so focused on the idea of guiding her, of being her protector, that he had never stopped to think about the importance of trust in return. Trust wasn't just about him leading. It was about them trusting each other, about letting go of the need for control. I trust you, Lyra," he said quietly, his voice filled with sincerity. "I never thought about it like that, but you're right. We're in this together. I can't control you. I can't make every decision for you. We have to figure this out together." Lyra's eyes softened, and a small smile tugged at the corners of her lips. "Thank you," she whispered. "That's all I needed to hear." In that moment, something shifted inside Lucas. The internal conflict that had been clouding his mind started to clear. He realized that Lyra wasn't asking him to change who he was. She was asking him to trust her, to let her make her own choices, and to stand by her side as an equal. And that was something he could do. As they sat by the lake, the moonlight shimmering on the water, Lucas finally understood. This wasn't just about guiding Lyra. It was about learning to trust each other, to support each other, and to grow together. The path ahead wouldn't be easy, but it was one they would walk together. The peace Lucas and Lyra had found was fragile, like a thin layer of ice covering a deep lake. Their connection had grown stronger with each passing day, but beneath the surface, there was a growing tension neither of them could ignore. Lyra had shared pieces of her past, her people, the Elysians, and the strict rules that bound them. Now Lucas was beginning to realize that their peaceful existence on this quiet planet was in danger. Lyra's departure from her people had not gone unnoticed, and the consequences of her defiance were beginning to catch up with them. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the landscape, Lyra turned to Lucas with a serious look on her face. "Lucas, we can't stay here much longer," she said softly, her voice tinged with worry. Lucas, who had been enjoying the calm, peaceful life they had built together, looked up in confusion. What do you mean? Why? I thought we were safe here. Lyra's eyes darkened, and she looked away, her gaze lost in the distance. My people, my family, they've noticed I'm gone. They will come for me. I'm not just an exile. I'm a defector, and they won't let that go easily. Lucas felt a chill run down his spine. He had known there were risks, but he hadn't fully understood the weight of what Lyra's departure from her people meant. He had thought that by protecting her, they could live out their days in peace, but peace was slipping away from their grasp. What will they do? Lucas asked, his voice tense. Lyra's lips pressed into a tight line. They will try to bring me back, and if they can't, they will. She paused, as though struggling to find the right words. They will destroy everything in their path. They will make an example of me, and they will make you a target too. Lucas stood up, his heart racing. The idea of Lyra being hurt, or worse, was too much to bear. But the thought of him being dragged into the conflict as well made him feel even more helpless. How do you know this? He asked, pacing now, his mind spinning with possibilities. I know because it's happened before, Lyra replied, her voice steady but filled with sadness. The Elysians value tradition above everything else. They will not let me go without a fight, and their fight won't be peaceful. Lucas turned to her, his eyes filled with determination. We can't just run. We have to do something. Lyra shook her head, her expression sad but resolute. There's nothing we can do. If they find us, they will destroy everything we've built here. And they will make sure I never have the chance to live freely again. No, Lucas said, his voice firm. I won't let them do that. We have a chance, Lyra. We can fight back. I can't promise we'll win, but I'll fight for you. I'll fight for us. For the first time, Lucas saw something flicker in Lyra's eyes, a mixture of hope and fear. She stepped closer to him, placing a hand on his chest. I never wanted this for you, Lucas. You didn't ask for any of this. But I need you. I need you to stand with me. Lucas took her hand, his heart pounding. He didn't know what the future held, but in that moment he made a decision. He wasn't going to let her face this alone. They had already come this far together. There was no turning back now. Then we stand together, Lucas said, his voice filled with resolve. Whatever happens, we face it together. I'm not going to let them tear us apart. Lyra's eyes softened, and for the first time in days, she allowed herself to smile. Thank you, she whispered, her voice barely audible. But even as she spoke those words, the threat of the Elysians loomed larger in their minds. They knew the war that was coming would change everything. They had no way of knowing how it would end. But one thing was certain. They were no longer just two individuals on a quiet planet. They were about to become part of something much bigger, an intergalactic struggle that would test everything they had learned about love, loyalty, and survival. The following days were a blur. Lucas and Lyra prepared in silence, knowing that their time together was running out. The peaceful life they had built, however brief, was being ripped apart by the inevitable arrival of the Elysians. Lucas had always thought of himself as just a soldier, a simple man with a mission. But now, standing beside Lyra, he had become something more. He had become her protector, her partner, and the weight of that responsibility rested heavily on his shoulders. They spent hours strategizing, making plans to leave the planet. But no matter how many different scenarios they considered, one truth kept staring them in the face. They couldn't run forever. The Elysians were relentless, and if they were to escape, it would be on their terms, not the Elysians. As night fell, Lucas sat outside their small shelter, staring at the stars. He wasn't sure what to feel anymore. Fear, anger, helplessness. All these emotions swirled in his chest, but there was one emotion that stood out above the rest. Love. He loved Lyra. He loved her more than he had ever loved anyone, and he would do whatever it took to protect her, even if it meant risking everything. Lyra joined him silently, sitting beside him. For a long time, they simply sat there, side by side, staring at the sky. It was moments like these that Lucas wished they could just forget about the war coming for them. He wished they could have more time. Time to learn, to grow, to love without fear. "You know what's coming, don't you?" Lyra said quietly, breaking the silence. Her voice was soft, but Lucas could hear the determination beneath her words. He nodded, his gaze never leaving the stars. "I know. We can't run forever. They'll find us eventually." Lucas turned to look at her, his heart heavy. "I won't let them take you. I won't let them hurt you." Lyra's eyes softened as she met his gaze. "I don't want you to fight for me, Lucas. I don't want you to throw your life away." "I'm not throwing my life away," he replied, his voice firm. "I'm fighting for something that matters. For you. For us." She sighed, leaning her head against his shoulder. "I never asked for this. I never asked to be the cause of all this trouble. I just wanted to be free." Lucas wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. "I know, but we can't change what's happened. All we can do is face it together." She looked up at him, her eyes filled with fear and uncertainty. "And what if we fail? What if we can't stop them?" Lucas took a deep breath, his mind clear for the first time in days. "Then we go down fighting. But I won't give up. I won't give up on you." Lyra looked at him for a long moment, searching his eyes as if trying to find the answer she was looking for. Finally, she nodded. "I'll stand by you, no matter what happens." The decision had been made. There was no turning back. Lyra had chosen him, and now he had to choose her, just as fiercely. The war that was coming would be brutal, and they had no guarantees of victory. But Lucas didn't care. He had something worth fighting for, something worth risking everything. As the night stretched on, they talked in whispers, planning their next moves. The Elysians would come soon, and when they did, Lucas and Lyra would stand together, no longer running, but ready to face whatever came their way. Together, they would fight for their freedom, for their love, and for the chance to live without fear. No matter what happened, they would face it as one. The day had come. The tension in the air was thick as Lucas and Lyra prepared for the inevitable. The Elysians were closing in, and the moment they had feared was finally here. They had no way of knowing how it would end, but Lucas knew one thing for certain. He wasn't going to let Lyra face this alone. She had come to him for protection, for guidance, and now it was his turn to do the same for her. They had moved quickly over the past few days, gathering supplies and making plans to fight back. Lucas had never imagined he would be in a position like this, fighting to protect an alien, to stand up against a powerful force from another world. But in the time he had spent with Lyra, something had changed inside him. She had opened his eyes to a world beyond the one he knew, a world filled with endless possibilities. And now, they would fight for that world. Lyra stood beside him, her violet eyes filled with determination, but also a quiet fear. The calm they had shared in the past days was gone, replaced by the harsh reality of the battle ahead. But she wasn't afraid anymore. She had made her choice, and so had Lucas. They would face whatever came together. "Are you ready?" Lucas asked, his voice steady, though his heart pounded in his chest. The moment of truth was finally here. Lyra gave him a small smile, her hand finding his. "I'm ready. I've never been more sure of anything." The two of them stood in front of their makeshift shelter, the sun setting behind them, casting a warm glow across the landscape. It was peaceful, almost serene, but Lucas could feel the storm approaching. He didn't know what would happen next, but he was prepared to face it head-on. For Lyra. For them. "They'll come for us," Lyra said quietly, looking up at the sky. "But we don't have to run anymore. We don't have to hide." "No," Lucas replied firmly. "We stand our ground. We fight." With that, they turned toward the horizon. The sound of distant ships filled the air, growing louder with each passing moment. The Elysians were here. As the enemy ships descended from the sky, Lucas and Lyra didn't flinch. They had prepared for this. They had made their peace with the uncertainty of the future. Whatever happened, they would face it together. The first ship landed in front of them, its sleek, metallic surface reflecting the light of the setting sun. The doors opened, and figures in armor stepped out, Elysian soldiers, tall and imposing. They were here to reclaim Lyra, to force her back into the life she had left behind. But Lyra stood her ground, her hand still clutching Lucas. She was no longer the frightened alien who had begged for freedom. She was strong, and she wasn't going back. "I will not go with you," Lyra said, her voice clear and unwavering. "I have chosen my path. I belong here, with him." The Elysian commander stepped forward, his eyes narrowing at the sight of Lucas. "You are making a grave mistake, Lyra. You cannot escape your fate." Lyra's gaze never wavered. "My fate is my own to decide." Lucas stepped beside her, standing tall. "We're not running anymore. We're not hiding. If you want her, you'll have to go through me." For the first time, the Elysian soldiers hesitated. They had expected fear. They had expected submission. But what they found was something they hadn't anticipated. A human who stood unshaken. A woman who had chosen her own freedom. The battle began, but it was not just about physical strength. It was about courage, choice, and the unbreakable bond between Lucas and Lyra. They fought side by side, not as enemies and aliens, but as two people who had found something worth protecting. The outcome was uncertain, but for the first time, Lucas felt alive. This was their fight, and no matter what, they would face it together.